So we're doing this casual because I just want to get this over with. Because I've been doing a lot of putting a lot of stuff together, doing a lot of work the last couple of weeks. And for those of y'all who know me, know that I can be a perfectionist a little bit. I can be a bit of a perfectionist. I'm just trying to get this out of the way because I don't want to do it anymore. Okay. All right. How's the best way to start this? So, I'm probably going to be using iMovie to put this together. I'm looking at my watch because I can actually see the screen on this, so I can know how I'm framed and everything. I don't like doing video when I don't know what I'm looking like when I do it. So, all right, it's a good way to start. All right. Hi everyone. You all know me. This is Chris. Formerly Michael. I don't go. Y'all should know by now. I don't go by Michael. I haven't gone by Michael since 2017. And when I made that decision, I made a post on Facebook about it, explaining why I wasn't going by that name anymore, and that a lot of that kind of has a lot to do, and I might reshare that post. So if anyone would like to know the context behind it, if they don't already, they can review that. But that kind of has to do with the subject of this video, and what I've been posting recently, as well as this has to do with if anyone has been noticing, because I've been doing a lot of stuff online. I've been getting stuff ready because I'm working on, and the reason for all of that has to do with the same thing about why I decided to go by one of my middle names instead of my first name, and it has to do with my history. It has to do with my childhood. It has to do with stuff that's happened when I was younger, and not just like one thing. It's apparently been multiple things, and just sort of really the story of what's been going on the last not just 11 years, but really just my entire life, and kind of going into more specific detail about that, because I've spoken a little bit in quite some depth and detail about what's been going on with me ever since 2014. But in the past, that when I've spoken on this, it's been a very difficult subject to talk about, because it was very difficult to know how to talk about it. It was not the sort of thing that a lot of people can relate to. And now I don't know if I'm still recording. Yeah, still recording. All right. In the past, it was difficult to talk about because it's not the sort of thing that a lot of people can relate to, and not a lot of people can understand, and not that I can't talk about it in a way that people could follow, but that even if you could follow what I was saying, it still wouldn't be the same as actually understanding the impact of it and the significance, and that's really important to me, because I've had to deal with this sort of this dichotomy, basically, of what I feel and experience, and why and the ways that I struggle with a lot of different things, versus what people perceive when they look at me and what they think about whatever assumptions they make about how intelligent or capable I am, and it's a lot of stuff that I've carried my entire life, and it's made things exceedingly difficult, especially when I was starting school, when I was starting college, and all the stuff that I've been working on and that I've ever worked on. So basically, I want to go into some detail about that because of what's happened in recent, what's been going on recently as an extension of all of that. I'm not online very much. People the people that I'm close to that are in my circle, we talk all the time. We play games all night all the time. And I haven't been on Facebook all that much because I just don't like it anymore. But some people who still connect with me and who still follow me on Facebook and who still keep up with what I'm doing, probably I would imagine. I guess if I was forced to, I would imagine a lot of y'all probably um, may have wondered at one point or another, whatever happened to him, whatever happened to Chris, where'd he go, what is he doing, because I got out of SFA in 2010, 2011. And afterwards I had moved to College Station. I'd lived with my sister for a little bit, and then went out on my own. I was working at AT&T for, I think it was like maybe 5 years. And I had a life. I had friends. I had a social circle. I had a social life. I was getting out, and I was an adult doing the adult thing. Just minding my business. And really, what happened, and I've written about this. I've shared this story. This wouldn't be the first time. But like, what happened was on December 23rd, 2014. I was at work. We were at work, and I was just minding my business. And I would experience what at that time at least would be my first experience of some kind of what would technically at the time would be called what was called some kind of psychosis. It was like a psychotic episode. This was like literally at work. I was standing at work, and I was leaning against this podium, and my coworkers and my friends, they were across the show floor, and they were just talking, and it was just a slow day. There was nobody in the store. We were just minding our business, and my friend Gary, who was my roommate at the time, he's kind of looking at me while they're all talking, and I noticed that he has this expression on his face, and he looks at me and he's like, "Are you all right?" And I realized that like something's going on, and I don't know what it is. And that was like when it all started, and that would be my that year, that the end of that year, 2014, would be the first time I would ever have a stay at like a mental health facility, because something had happened, and I could describe what had happened. And I want to make this short, but I could describe what happened, but I didn't know what it was. And that's kind of the recurring theme of like the last 11 years, is that like things were happening to me. I was experiencing things that like I could describe them, and there was the stuff in my head, but like I didn't understand what it was and where it was coming from and why it was all there, and like why now, like what does this mean? Does this mean anything? And just dealing largely with the fear of like, am I just going crazy? And from that point on, my life just kind of like slowly began to unravel, because like all of this stuff was happening, this bizarre stuff that I could not explain. And it wouldn't be until like 2.5 years later that I would start to kind of maybe realize and understand why this was happening. And at that point, it was having to do with basically, as a child, I was 8 years old at the time. Some form of sexual abuse that I had suffered at the hands of a teacher when I was a kid. And now I'm not going to name them, but I will observe directly for everyone watching that the individual responsible has since been taken care of. They are incarcerated at present. They were sentenced to like something like 50 years or something back in like, I think it was 2012. So like they're not a danger to anyone right now. So me withholding their name is of no significance right now. It's not about them. We're moving past that because that's done. But that was a difficult thing to deal with, because it was kind of revealing to me. It's like, okay, there's stuff in my head that I don't remember, and that's just not my experience. Having stuff that I don't remember, because this isn't the same as something that you don't think about, right? Like it's not something that you forget. It was like it was there, but it was there in a way that I didn't understand until suddenly it was like demanding that I look at it, and when I was looking at it, I didn't know what it was I was seeing. And it was very distressing, and it was very difficult, because like I had gotten another job. I was working at Geek Squad still in College Station, and like I'd be at work talking to people. I was doing tech support, and people would be telling me like what's wrong with their computers, and I'm trying to help them. And while this is going on, I'm like, reliving the things that happened in that classroom. It was very, very distressing. But the reason that I'm making this video now is because in recent over the course of like the last maybe week or so, I'm sure some of y'all probably noticed that y'all have been receiving like a lot of either like friend requests or like invitations to like Facebook pages and stuff, like probably from me, or you could see like from the profile images that it was me. Part of that has to do with what I'm working on, and what I'm working on has to do with me telling this story. I'm not going to be trying to tell this whole story in this video, but I wanted to explain in this video the big thing about what's been going on and why I'm doing this, that I haven't talked about publicly yet, let alone on Facebook or on social media, is it wasn't until this last year that it was becoming apparent that what I've been going through on this journey of dealing with stuff from my past that I don't remember, that I don't understand, that what happened, the things that were done to me throughout my childhood, the impact of it that we didn't understand is that apparently I have been suffering from some form of severe dissociative-type disorder. I haven't had an official diagnosis of it yet, specific dissociative disorder I am suffering from, but it is obvious that it's happening. And it's not just something that like I am hypothesizing. Like when I say that it's obvious, I mean that like my family, who have been with me along every step of this journey as all this bizarre stuff has gone on, they can attest to the fact that this is a thing, because bizarre things have happened. I have done, said, and behaved in very strange ways, very publicly, very recently, that it's undeniable what it is that's going on. And it's been very difficult to talk about once I became aware of it, because it wasn't something that I was aware of. It wasn't until very recently, again, within the last year, within the last 6 months, that, because like whenever I have those kinds of episodes, generally, historically, I don't remember that they happen. I get out of the mental health, facility, and then I get home and I start looking at my phone, or I start looking at my text messages or emails, or I start seeing stuff that I was posting on various like social media, and start finding things that I was saying and doing that I don't remember having done. And it does, and like there's something about it that like makes sense. It's like I can remember, or I can recognize where it's coming from, but like not why I was doing it. And I don't remember having done it. And so it's like been this embarrassing kind of like confusing journey, because it's like there are people in my life who were aware that these things were happening, but because they knew that I wasn't like present when I was doing it, that it wasn't like they were like keeping it from me, but like they weren't bringing it up because they knew it would be distressing to bring it up to me and tell me of those things. And so most recently, when this happened, when I became aware of it, it was back in like February. I'm sitting in, it was very, very early morning, and I had another episode, and my mom had called the emergency services for help, and I'm sitting in the police cruiser, and they're taking me to the facility, and like I can remember very explicitly the conversation that was had in that car. And it wasn't me that was talking, it was like being in the passenger seat of the car, and somebody else was driving. And I used to be very embarrassed about the idea of like sharing that this was a thing, but I've since don't feel that way anymore because of what's recently happened, because my perspective on that has changed. It's not something that I'm doing, it's just a symptom of something that happened to me, and that's okay. But the thing is that like what happened last month is the big thing. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this story, but basically I went missing randomly, and I'm not, again, because of the context for what happened when I was found. I can't get into that specifically because that's still in progress, but it was very awful what happened. I was gone for 11 days. It was from August 11th to the 22nd. And when I got back, when Mom and Stu and Sammy were able to find me and bring me back home, I basically got to this point where it was like, okay, I'm done with this. Like I need to do something with this. I need to tell this story about what happened and what's been happening to me, and why this is happening now, why this is continued to go on, why it's been 11 years, and not just really 11 years, but honestly, like my entire life, at least as far back as the time that I was 8 years old, but it could be even further back than that. I'm still just piecing together all of this. But basically, like, there's a number of terrible, terrifying things that happened to me when I was a kid at a time when I wasn't able to process or understand what it was. And especially now that my dad is gone, who I have come to understand he was to some extent understanding and aware of what I was going through. Not having him here to help, and losing him, like I didn't take that very well. I took it was very difficult, because I just realized that this, the one person in the world that I understood who would be there for me no matter what, and who had been there and had helped me, isn't here anymore to do that. And after what happened last month, when I disappeared, basically, I just understand now that if he's not here to help me with this, to tell me what he knew and to tell me what's going on and what I can do, then I need to be able to tell this story. And as I've come to remember more and more and understand more of my own childhood and what's been going on, I've come to understand why it's been so difficult to ever even try to talk to people about what happened, just because of the time and the place and the history and the community and my family. And that I was on some level unconsciously understanding and aware of why it would be difficult to tell this story, not just because of the nature of what happened, but because of how it would inform other things that have happened. And I just can't sit with that anymore. I can't sit with this presumed responsibility of having to maintain the status quo of like whatever everyone else understands or recognizes about either myself or the history of what's gone on in this community as I understand it and as I've come to remember it. Because my dad, we would talk all the time. I would ask him all kinds of questions about his history, his career, where he came from, how he got here, how we got to Texas, and then finding out that we have family here, that we didn't know about on my mom's side. That there's all this story about like who my family is and how people in this community, or who my family are and how people in this community know us and recognize us, and what that has to do with me and where I fit in with all of that, and what my dad did and what his role in this community was at the time that he was here and at the time that he was working in law enforcement. And these are all details, and this is all information I did not have until about a year ago. And as I'm dealing and wrestling with all of this stuff that's in my head that doesn't make any sense, that comes from my childhood when it didn't make sense, and I learn new information and details now that apply and are applicable to what happened, 20 and 30 years ago, I start to understand more about what this story is and what my position in it was. And this thing that I've been running away from my entire life, this feeling that I'm at the center of this inexplicable thing, it for the longest time, it couldn't have been real. Like, I didn't think that it could be real, that it was in this impulse that I wasn't supposed to carry, that somehow I would want to be this important figure in this all-encompassing, widespread thing with this impossible scope. And it was like, no, that's not real. That's not reality. That's not what's going on. That can't be what's real. And now that I know and have come to learn so much more about what was going on here that I didn't know back then, it's kind of reframed that feeling. And it wasn't a feeling that I wanted. to be important or that I wanted to be the central figure of this story. It was the intuitive understanding that there was something that was done to me because I was made the subject of this heinous, egregious act. And that the nature of what was done to me is what's messed up, all of this stuff that's in my head that I can't hold on to. And now that I'm understanding what that is in a way that I can hold on to it, I feel like it's time that it's not this thing that has to be kept quiet anymore, or this thing that has to be kept secret anymore, because that's what's been killing me. And it's time to talk about it. It's time to share that story. Still, only the problem that remains is that again, I don't have a full, coherent, like cogent grasp on what that narrative is. I have pieces of it. There are things there that I'm certain of. There are things there that I can understand, but there are huge swaths and pieces of things that are still missing, or that are still out of context, and I'm still working through it. And I think I have ideas about what they are and how to find them. But basically, all of that to say that what I have been doing all of my life with pretty much any of the creative endeavors that I've been going through, like whether I was wanting to make comic books as an illustrator, or wanting to write music for film and television, or wanting to tell a story, wanting to write a book, it's always been an extension of me trying to work out and understand the story that I needed to tell, that I needed for people to know, that I needed to be able to tell others, because I needed for people in my life to know what was wrong because of what was done and what happened. I needed to be able to be the one to tell them. And I still don't know how to do that. And the only way that I've worked out what I so far understood about what happened has been through these artistic pursuits, through building this fictional framework, and like these stories and these worlds where I can observe these characters and the dynamics that they have with each other, and how they navigate this space, because it's kind of like a test bed for how I might navigate this space, and how this thing that I've always done ever since I was a kid, where stories would always be a safe place for me. And it didn't matter what story it was. Like, it could be a children's book, or it could be an adult fantasy, it doesn't matter. Like, they were safe. I could go into a story and I could be something other than what I am. I could be better. I could be safer. I could be stronger. I could be scared, and it could be okay because it would work out. Stories were safe. That's where I could go. And it wasn't just that I could hide there and I could be safe within the story, or I could be safe as another character, but it was also a place where I could put what I know, these details of things, and put them in places in that story where I could find them again if I were to ever revisit them. And that's basically been the sort of like linchpin of like all the fiction that I've been writing, because in now in later on, like in my adult life, I go back and I look at all the stuff that I've been doing, and even stories, like I still have files from things that I've written ever since like 2001, and I can see elements of what I've been doing with like my debut novel, like with Days of Class, which I published in 2022. There was stuff that I was doing in that story that were extensions of like the Digimon fan story that I was writing when I was in intermediate school, or junior high, or things that I was doing with my original comic book Origins that I made when I was a senior in high school, that I've been working on since the 8th grade. Those elements stayed with me because it was like, that's what I was trying to say about myself. It was always about me and what had happened to me, and why am I here? Why am I in the digital world? Why am I a superhero in Gilmer? Why am I, an injured football player when I never played football? I've been trying to understand something about myself, and I'm finally starting to understand it. I'm finally starting to be able to see it. I'm finally starting to be able to carry it and put it down, and put it someplace functional, because having this condition, this dissociative disorder, it's like these characters, in a way, they have been walking with me, in the sense so that whenever I encounter a situation or a scenario or something traumatic, something that would trigger the necessity for them to engage and participate when I can't, that, like it could be like when you get rear-ended on your way back from Dallas, which is something that happened on March the 31st. I went to go visit my friend and brother Chris, and I met his wife, and I was driving back home that next morning, and I don't remember the car accident, but somebody rear-ended me, and presumably lied about it when the police showed up. But I was in the middle of an episode, and they thought that I was intoxicated, and I wasn't. I was just having a mental health crisis because I had a car accident. That was March 31st. And then a week and a half later, my dad passed away. And then in August the 11th, I disappeared and eventually was held captive for 11 days in solitary confinement. And, that every time like something like this happens, it's just very distressing. And it's like, I can't keep having to carry this if things like this keep happening. And if I can't tell the story, then there's no telling how much more I'm going to have to put up with. And I just wanted to be able to say out loud in a format that people would follow, because people don't usually have a lot of time to read the long essays and things that I write, that, this is a thing. It's been happening. It's real. I've been taking steps to deal with it. I've been working to deal with it for years. I'm trying to make as much progress as I can, but I feel like the only way that I can make the progress that I need to is if I start trying to tell this story. And the only way that I know how to tell this story are the stories that I've always been trying to tell. And I finally feel like I know what I've been trying to say and which stories I need to tell and how I can tell them. And so all of like the links and things I've been sending people, the Facebook pages that I've been creating, that's all been intentional this time. I know in recent years there's been some odd stuff probably coming from me that people may not have ever understood what it was. But like this, what's been going on in the last couple of weeks, that's intentional. It is a conscious, deliberate effort to finally be able to have the foundation to bring others along with me on this journey of understanding the things that took place and the things that happened and what was done and what happened to me as a consequence. And because I can't sit with it on my own anymore. If I have to keep carrying alone the secret of this thing, these terrible things that happen, then I don't know what else is going to happen. If, I have to do something about it, and, I can't rely on anybody else to do it for me. I don't have my dad here anymore to come and rescue me. If I don't do something about it, then I can't account for what comes next. But if I make a choice about what comes next, then that's something that I can account for. And that's what I'm working towards. I've got links that I've been posting on my wall. I started a Patreon. That's pretty much kind of the central kind of space and hub for where you can kind of go to keep up with like the full scope of what I'm doing and where it's going and what I'm working on. There are a few things that I'm going to be jumping towards in the immediate future. I've decided I've really kind of gotten into, I've been trying Spotify, I've really gotten into just like mixing playlists and kind of just doing the whole DJ thing. I don't have experience doing DJ, which is why I'm called on Spotify and Apple Music amateur DJ. I'm not a professional, but it's fun. I enjoy doing it. You can find me on there. I'm going to be kind of doing sort of musical storytelling through just how I'm going to be mixing the music and how I'm going to be presenting it and what I'm going to be doing with it. I also know now what like the next novel I want to start writing is going to be. It's going to be a fantasy story. I'm going to be working on that. That's not going to be like online anywhere. I do that privately in person in real time. And then I am back on Twitter. I actually have a few Twitter accounts that took a lot of time to set up. I will be having posts on Facebook on where you can follow me on Twitter to keep up on some of this stuff, as well as Instagram and Threads. Threads now is kind of the bigger, or the primary social media platform that I really stick to. That's the one that I kind of enjoy the most. But just wherever you follow me, or if you see links that I'm posting referencing other things and that I'll be doing, that's where it's all gonna. That just keep up with that if you want. The other thing too is that, given like my condition and everything, the reason I'm starting a Patreon is that I don't have a job. I'm not capable of keeping up trying to work in a professional environment in this condition. The last job that I had, and I had it for a little over a year, I was doing tech support over the phone. I was working remote here at home. And I was good at it. It was great. I enjoyed doing that job. But at the end of the day, it was very stressful because, you're dealing with people that are in crisis situations and they can't use like their phones and their computers and stuff. And I just couldn't handle it because, my condition. So the reason I'm doing the Patreon, I'm going to be really pursuing now just full throttle all the various like artistic and creative work that I've always been wanting to do. But it's an opportunity. Like, if you kind of want to think of it old school, like old school, like Renaissance era, that like I require patronage. I require a patron or multiple patrons. Right now, starting off, as I get everything set up with the Patreon, there will be just like a baseline, like I think it's like $5 a month subscription. If that's something that anyone can handle, and you're like, hey, Chris is my boy, my dude, my bro, I'm gonna help him out. If you want to jump in and contribute something to help, just whatever, do what you can to help finance a struggling independent artist who also has some very serious shit going on in his life. That's something that you can do. If you find any of my Twitter pages, which I will be posting, they will also have tip functions on there as well. If that is a concern for anybody, because, of like X and everything and Elon Musk and all that, what I can tell you about the tip functions on X is that X doesn't take any money from the tips whatsoever. I do have a Cash App, and that's where all of my tips are set up through on X. So if you find a Twitter page of mine, which I'll be linking to some of them, and that's something that you want to do, like, hey, I'll give you some funds, whatever. If you want to be a patron, if you're okay with me receiving a humble patronage, then you can do it through Twitter. You can subscribe through Patreon once that gets set up. And you can help me, help support me and help me support myself doing this work and finding stability as an artist of some kind. And as time goes on and I start doing more specific things, like I have a lot of ideas in mind, a lot of different projects that I want to do, and in a lot of cases, a lot of them kind of working together, using them to kind of like build a larger whole out of them. As things progress, then there will be more options on the Patreon. So like if you're able and willing to provide more like monetary support, then there will be different options and you'll get more out of it, once we get to that point. But for now, it'll just start with like a $5 subscription on the Patreon. And then we have like the Twitters with the tip pages. And then whatever else, you're able or willing to provide or offer, just sharing any of the content that I'm doing. I've got this playlist on Spotify that I made for my dad, or in honor of my dad. I've got the book, that I published in 2022. If anybody wants to read that, that is a part of the story that I've been trying to tell. That was step one. That was always intended to be step one when I wrote that book. That's on Apple Books. It's called Days of Class. You can go to daysofclass.com. I have the links to it on like all of my social media. So if you see daysofclass.com on anything and you click on it, it should take you straight to the Apple Book store. I only have it available on Apple Books right now. I don't fuck with Amazon, and I haven't been able to. I had begun work on trying to get a physical printed edition published, but I was never able to finish that at the time. It's still in progress. So if you're on an Apple device, you've got Apple Books, and if that's the thing that you want to take a look at, right now it's available for $9.99, and you can just go to search Days of Class or go to daysofclass.com. It will take you right there. So I just wanted to clarify for everyone who's connected with me on this platform specifically what's been going on, and so that you're aware, because it's just not something that I feel like I need to be keeping a secret. It's just not something that I feel like I need to be ashamed of anymore. It's not something that I'm doing. It's just the result of things that have been done, and I'm done being the one held responsible for it. And I'm ready to try to take the steps to move forward and build something and create something productive. And I don't know what'll come of it. I don't know where it'll go, but I don't need to. I just need to know that it's something that I can do. It's something that I can enjoy. It's something that I can focus on and that I can dive into, somewhere that I don't have to hide. It can be somewhere that I can stand and be present and be the person that I can be, and not who everyone needs me to be, or not who everyone thinks that I should be or thinks that I am. You know, it's who I am. And I'd be grateful and honored and humbled to have anyone join me who's willing to find out who that person gets to be. So I guess that is it for me. This is a long enough video. I'm going to have to try to cut it down because it's like 37 minutes. But thanks for sticking around, and we'll see what comes next. So just, keep following. You can follow me here on Facebook. There's a new Facebook page called The Three Brothers. We'll be getting into that. That's kind of like the first step, finding the three brothers. And then I'll post like my Twitter pages and the Patreon link and everything. And so thanks to everyone, for being there. Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for being family. Thanks for being brothers, because I got a lot of brothers. And I just want to say a special thanks to Stuart and Stefan, Gary, Chris Roman, and so many other people who've been there and when I needed them to be there. My family, my mom, Erica, especially Erica, oh my gosh, and Sammy, and everyone else. I love you all. I'm grateful to get to know you and get to be a part of this family and everything that's been happening. And I look forward to finding out what's next. I look forward to the next chapter. Just got to write it. So everyone, peace out. Stay frosty. And just because it would be random because it's not bedtime, don't let the bed bugs bite.